Dear Christopher Audrey, here is your friend Thomas the Tank Engine. He wanted to come out of his station yard and see the world. These stories tell you how he did it. I hope you will like them because you helped me to make them. Your loving daddy, Wilbur. This has been a quote that's changed many people's lives. Well, not really many people's lives, but the lives of a young boy with the measles who wanted stories about trains. Trains that talk as a nighttime comfort. And indeed, Thomas delivered. Well, not really Thomas yet. First there was Edward, Gordon, and Henry. Thomas wasn't introduced until another book. Anyway, on this day, 40 years ago, Thomas the Tank Engine was brought onto television. And next year, he's about to celebrate 80 years of being Thomas. So, let me just tell you about how I got into Thomas and, how he's still alive in me. And I mean the real Thomas, not that cartoon glob of ink. Heck, not really ink because it's not really hand-drawn, but still. So, as a kid born on the autism spectrum, it was pretty hard for me to make friends as a child. Anytime a child came near me, I screamed. Either that or just pushed them away because, well, didn't want anything to do with people. Which, it would be pretty hard to not have friends, That wasn't until my mom found me my first friend, which his name was Owen. I don't know him personally now. He was just the first friend I made when I was a baby. Anyway, this kid, Owen, also had autism. Just like I did. He was born on the autism spectrum. Which, having autism is nothing to be ashamed of, Anyway, he had this Thomas the Tank Engine wooden railway table. And he also had Thomas DVDs and videos and stuff. And this was like when I was still a toddler. And when I still lived in Michigan. This guy was like the first friend I made. Of course, I don't know where he is now. I don't know if he even remembers me. I don't know if he's still into Thomas today. But I know for a fact that I am. Anyway, when we moved to Missouri, my aunts gave me my first train set, which it wasn't Thomas the Tank Engine, but it was this railway system created by Fisher-Price called GeoTrax. It had these trains that could run on these plastic rails. They had like these special gears so it could help climb hills, and it also had traction tires. It had a remote control so you can make it go forwards, backwards, blow its whistle, and other stuff. Anyway, however, it wasn't just Thomas who got me into trains too. It was also the Polar Express. But that's another story for when we get to the 20th anniversary of the Polar Express. Of how it helped me believe in Christmas and stuff. But anyway, back to what I'm saying about Thomas. This is about Thomas here. As a kid, that time was hard. It was hard for me to sleep, but my mom got me a wooden railway Thomas, and that was for like a Christmas. That's when I got my first Thomas. I don't have that Thomas to this day, but I have a wooden railway Thomas that's similar to my first Thomas. I mean, it's like the same kind, but it's not the same Thomas that I grew up with. If it was the same Thomas, it'd probably be beaten and broken. Of course, this Thomas didn't have any tracks. It was just wooden railway Thomas. I think my first Thomas set was probably the Tomy Big Loader. Basically, the Tomy Big Loader is this toy where Thomas and Percy load up coal and, with the help of Terrence, Percy collects the coal, delivers it to Terrence. Thomas arrives to collect the coal, which Terrence puts into his bunker, which he delivers back to the coal hopper for Percy to pick up again. It's a pretty simple toy, and it teaches good cause and effect. Anyway, my first big Thomas set was the flip-face Thomas at Timoth Sheds. This was probably the first big Thomas set that I had. Basically, he had a Thomas that could flip from his happy face to a surprised face. He had a remote control, and there were two buttons, one that sounded his whistle and the other that played the engine roll call. Also, around this time, I also had a Thomas Attention couch, and I also had some Thomas DVDs. But I think the biggest thing that got me into Thomas in the first place was Thomas and the Magic Railroad. This movie has been a huge part of my childhood. Many people dislike it because, well, magic and the misuse of railway terms for Britain, not to mention the Britons don't know what shining time is, so they were left confused. However, being a Yankee Doodle, I really loved it. Because, well, it was trains. Yeah, Thomas didn't appear a lot in that movie, but still, he was still in it. But honestly, despite Thomas's lack of appearances, he is still really useful in the movie. Many people just say he didn't have to be there for the chase, but he kind of did. I mean, he didn't really have a choice. He came through the Magic Railroad after falling off Muffle Mountain. And so Dieselton was coming up behind him. He couldn't just escape. He had to follow Lady. Not only this, but he was the one who delivered the line that little engines can do big things. And if little engines can do big things, so can people with a disability like autism. But anyway, I had a few Thomas DVDs, like not just Magic Railroad. I had, let's see, I had the 2008 or 2007 DVD of Carnival Capers, and I also had Songs from the Station from 2005. And then I got Calling All Engines because I had Dieselton and Lady in it, and it was practically a sequel to Magic Railroad in my opinion. And I really liked it. Even from season 8 to season 12, I still loved Thomas because I was a kid. Interactive stuff was okay. It was fun to play along with the learning segments as a kid. As an adult, not as much as a kid, but still, it always tugs at my heartstrings because it makes me think about my childhood. Anyway, growing up, my father has tried countless times, my biological father has tried countless times to try to get me out of Thomas the Tank Engine. However, I still have my heart set on meeting Thomas, taking a ride on Thomas, and also just, watching Thomas, playing with Thomas. Yeah, any punishment that I received had something to do with Thomas. He would try to take Thomas away. Not to mention, he thought it was making me, I don't know. He didn't want me to be humiliated because then he would be humiliated. While yes, many people say that Thomas is a baby show, mainly because of season 8 through 16, the whole Sharon Miller era, when Thomas was pretty much marketed towards little kids, like babies and toddlers and 4-year-old kids, ages 4 to 6 or something. Other kids were like into the newest thing, like Transformers and other stuff. I was into some of these things myself. I was into Batman. I was into, like, I was also into just superheroes, Hot Wheel cars. However, Thomas still stuck around with me. I don't think there's ever been like a period where I just stopped liking Thomas, because even though Lionsgate scared me as a kid, I still wanted to watch Thomas. I just wanted to skip past the Lionsgate logo and just watch Thomas. Thankfully, the Netflix versions don't have the Lionsgate logo. Heck, none of the home media versions have the Lionsgate logo at all, because it's just for DVD distribution. Lionsgate doesn't fully own Thomas. But anyway, in the year 2013, my brother got a Thomas the Tank Engine set, which it was mostly a track expansion set that included Thomas, and it had like bridges and stuff. And this was when he was still somewhat into Thomas. Anyway, we fast forward to like 2016. Well, 2015 actually. It's been quite a year for me, because I got a new Polar Express set. I was turning 13. I was a teenager. However, my Nana got me the best gift ever. Like, she got me like 3 trash bags full of Thomas the Tank Engine trains. I mean, there was coaches and freight cars, wooden tracks, Trackmaster, a little bit of Tomy, and Take Along. It was like the ultimate Thomas collection. And I was officially a full Thomas collector. That wasn't until I lost most of the stuff at my old house, because I thought we were going to be coming back for it the next day, but well, yeah. So I've pretty much lost a lot of the Thomas stuff, but at least I still have a lot of the engines, freight cars, and coaches from the other brands. But track-wise, I only have like Trackmaster. That was when my biological father left, and you know, we moved in with my stepfather. Anyway, still I was into Thomas, and in 2018 was going to be a big year for me. It was the time when I was going to let go of my imaginary friends, because back then Thomas was my imaginary friend, because I loved him so much. And so I decided the best way to do that is by doing a day out with Thomas, and that could be like my way of meeting the real deal and finally letting go of the imaginary friend. However, there's still a way I could bring Thomas to life and show that I have fun with him still. And that was making videos. I first started off making Facebook videos and live streams with Thomas and Percy and the other engines. But then later on, in like late 2019, I finally moved to YouTube. And I made the decision to make Thomas the Tank Engine videos. And not only that, but I also wanted to use real trains, like there's a real railroads that I visited when I was a child. But well, if it wasn't for Thomas, I probably wouldn't have wanted to go to the zoo and Six Flags so badly, because they have trains. Because the St. Louis Zoo, they have trains. And Six Flags St. Louis has the best steam engine in the world, Tommy G. Robertson. However, the real best steam engine in the world is obviously Thomas. Thomas has been a huge part of my childhood, and he's still a huge part of me today. I still collect Thomas the Tank Engine stuff, and I still will until the unknown end of time. Then when I grow old, I will pass it on to whoever wants Thomas in their life. I would give him the old stuff and the new stuff. In 2020, though, was when Thomas was about to change completely. Obviously, he was already changing with like Big World, Big Adventures. However, it wasn't until late 2020 when I heard the announcement of a reboot. When I saw that Thomas, I was like, well, maybe they might at least keep the voice. Maybe it's still going to be the same Thomas and Friends, just 2D animated and with a slightly different style. Maybe he would still have connecting rods. He did not. Maybe he would still be voiced by Joseph May. He was not. He would probably still be a really useful engine pulling trains and stuff. Not really. Thomas just became an actual baby show. And they literally turned him into a child. This All Engines Go is not my Thomas, guys. Lots of people do have a soft spot for All Engines Go, especially because, well, it uses Neil Crone voicing Gordon and Eddie Glenn, who was the voice of Thomas, and Thomas the Magic Railroad voicing Toby. But that still doesn't change the fact that Thomas is a child now. Not to mention a few other engine characters, and apparently Diesel's no longer a villain, he's just a vain character. James was the one who's vain, but Diesel is now vain. But honestly, I do not like All Engines Go. Many people, one person in particular, will try to force people to like it, but he won't. All Engines Go is not my Thomas. And I really don't like how they're literally making him the new Thomas. Like Lionel, they've made an All Engines Go set. The Dale Thomas dummy units and Steam Power Thomas now have the Kid Thomas's voice. Strangely, the Lionel set still uses Joseph May, but still. And at least it makes steam though, but still it's not my Thomas. Because my Thomas has connecting rods, he pulls passenger and freight trains. He doesn't just bounce around and, uses his wheels to pull levers. He's not from Chuggington, which I do like Chuggington. And honestly, if I was a kid, I'd probably like All Engines Go a lot better, but as an adult, I just want to see an actual tank engine, connecting routes turning. I want to just see him being useful, pulling freight cars, passenger cars, and just, getting along with people. Anyway, over the years of All Engines Go taking over my life, taking over Thomas, I soon started watching YouTubers about Thomas, like The Unlucky Tug and Thomas Theorist, where they've covered pretty much all the seasons. Well, almost all the seasons, and they still have the other seasons to come. But anyway, that's when I knew that classic Thomas from seasons 1 through at least 7 was still my Thomas. It was still the Thomas that I grew up with, but more mature. Heck, obviously, season 8 through 12 will still be the most powerful Tom. Would still be my childhood too. Like, a lot of my family still quotes Michael Brandon. And I still quote Michael Brandon too. Like, he was definitely one of my childhood voices of Thomas. One of the biggest things I've done for Thomas was I've watched all 12 of the Model Series episodes, or all 12 seasons of Model Series. And the more I watched it, I realized that season 1 felt very storybook-like and, childlike. But then season 2 came and it became a lot more industrial, but still the same Thomas. Then season 3 was when Thomas was starting to become beautiful again, obviously. It was still industrial, but it was also starting to get beautiful, and there were more serious themes too. Season 4 had the narrow gauge engines, and needless to say, I definitely liked the narrow gauge engines, but I still longed for Thomas. Season 5 was practically the dark ages for Thomas because that was when they started to do more cinematic stuff. Like, I'm talking waterfalls, I'm talking floods, I'm talking boulders, I'm talking landslides. And it's just all very intense themes. However, there's also beautiful episodes too. Like episodes of like Percy attending a wedding of Miss Kindly and stuff. However, I definitely think that season 5 was definitely the most intense Thomas season. Then season 6 was when Thomas was starting to get more childlike. And, that was mainly because now Thomas was owned by Ghislaine, which Britt Allcroft was starting to step away. She still had some creative control, but she was slowly stepping away. But anyway, season 6 still had Alec Baldwin, and not to mention it still had some nice episodes. Most people dislike how they literally blah blah the morals at the end, but I think it's sweet because it's like VeggieTales when they sum up what they learned, which I think that's good for children. I mean, other people may think it's just pointless, but I think it's good because it's like, okay, here's what we've learned from the island of Sodor. In fact, I kind of wish they still did that. Well, they sort of did that in like seasons 8 through 12. Especially when Saitama said that the engines were really useful and stuff. But anyway, season 7 was like the last year of Classic Thomas. The last one to use Mike and Junior's score. The last season to also, have like a classic feeling. However, it was also Jack in the Pack that had like a classic feeling too. But that was when Hartshorn was starting to score the episodes, and while that was when Thomas and Percy were starting to appear like in all the episodes. Pretty soon, Thomas started appearing like every episode, which I didn't mind because Thomas was my hero. I think aside from Thomas, my favorite engine is, well, Percy, obviously, and also Edward. I relate a lot to Edward sometimes. I become the voice of reason. Which I think it's nice I become the voice of reason because it helped a lot of people. Like, it helped some Happy Tree Friend users. And also, being a friend is what helped me join these communities. I may like watching The Simpsons having hilarious antics, and I may also love the Happy Tree Friends and their cute, adorable characters and their funny, gory moments. I also may love THX and its amazing deep note. I may love PBJ Otter and their amazing adventures around Lake Hoo-Ha. I may love Bluey for how great of a children's show it is. How it's not just for children, it's for mostly adults too. Mostly adults learn from the series, while the kids just learn how to have fun with your parents, like practically forcing them, but still. And and not to mention, I may be getting into new stuff like, well, Zootopia with Officer Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde and stuff. And I am pretty excited for Zootopia 2 to come out next year, but that will wait because right now all I can think about is Thomas the Tank Engine turning 80. Which I will plan something big for Thomas' 80th anniversary, but for the 40th I decided to just explain how I got into Thomas. Now for Thomas' 80th anniversary, I might do something like Once Upon a Studio, except maybe called like Once Upon a Train Station, and have to where all the engines are celebrating the 80th anniversary of Thomas and Friends, and also celebrating Thomas's birthday. And all the other characters would be there too, like all the other super stationers, Mr. Conductor, the Simpsons, the Otters, the Healers, the Happy Tree Friends, Mark, Tex, and also Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde will be in it too. But anyway, Thomas will forever live in my heart. And I'm hoping that next year I can do a day out with Thomas. Like maybe do the Illinois Railroad Museum, because the place that's doing Day Out with Thomas now, the place I first went to Day Out with Thomas no longer does Day Out with Thomas. And they mostly made the Polar Express their biggest cash cow. But we'll get to the Polar Express in a later video or stream. I think I've said all I need to say. Although most of the time for Thomas and Friends, the hero to me was Mr. Conductor, which was from Shining Time Station, but in all fairness, I never really grew up with Shining Time. But I did grow up with Magic Railroad, if that counts. But anyway, keep on chugging, Thomas. I hope maybe next year we'll get the Thomas we all know and love. Maybe All Engines Go will come to a close. I hope. Then again, probably not. It sucks that Thomas is still this way, like, still a toy-like character, still making gimmicks like jumping around, squishing and squashing. However, the real Thomas still is inside of me. And also my videos. Thomas will still be the same tank engine in my videos. And I will not be using the All Engines Go Thomas. Well, I mean, I will for like as a villain, but not for any good episodes. If I did use any All Engines Go characters, it would probably just be Bruno, and I wouldn't make him a child. I would make him an actual grown adult, like an actual Thomas and Friends character. Yes, he would still have irises, but still. Bruno has done nothing wrong, which I'm glad that they made an autistic character for Thomas and Friends, but they kind of already had that with Duck. But hey, beggars can't be choosers. But anyway, I think I'm probably going to watch some classic episodes of Thomas and Friends right now, so make sure to subscribe to Drew Thomas, and don't forget to check out my movies that have Thomas the Tank Engine in it. But anyway, this is Drew Thomas signing off. In fact, the name Drew Thomas came from Thomas because, yeah, my real name I will not reveal because I'm kind of ashamed of it, especially my middle name, because it was my biological father's middle. Because it was the name of my biological father, and I'm really ashamed of him. But anyway, this is Drew Thomas, who will forever be a Thomas fan, and no one's going to stop me at all. No one's going to tell me to stop liking Thomas. No one's going to say it's a baby show. No one's going to call me a slur and ruin Thomas for me entirely. But either way, I'm signing off right now. Good night, and pickles, and diesels, and all engines go, and anything, and anyone who thinks Thomas is a children's show and only for children suck.